Hello everyone and welcome back to Sector 6, and today I've got the second episode in my character profile and prediction series. And if you've seen the thumbnail already, then you know that this is hopefully going to be one of the bigger episodes that I do. In this episode, we're looking at Aerith Gainsborough. Now don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe for future content, it does help massively. And if you're feeling in the mood to be exceptionally helpful, give the video a share. But let's get straight into it, and really quickly before I do, this video has got full spoilers for pretty much the entire compilation of Final Fantasy VII up to the end of Remake. So, yeah, you've been warned. Aerith is one of, if not the most important character in the entire Final Fantasy VII story. Aerith was born to Ifalna, the last remaining ancient, and Professor Gast, the former head of Shinra's Science Research Department, and this happened around 22 years prior to the events of Final Fantasy VII. Gast had helped Ifalna escape the Shinra, and the two of them were hiding out at Icicle Inn. However, a few days after Aerith was born, a team led by Professor Hojo tracked them down, killed Professor Gast, and took Ifalna as well as the baby Aerith back into Shinra custody. Aerith and Ifalna subsequently spent years being tested on by Shinra and Hojo, who would stop at nothing in their pursuit of the elusive Promised Land, a land of abundant Mako energy that would be the answer to all of Shinra's hopes and dreams and allow them to enact the Neo-Midgar plan. And this went on for around 7 years, at which point Ifalna was presented with an opportunity to escape Shinra with Aerith, which she obviously took, but she was wounded in the process. Due to the fact that she was wounded, she only made it as far as the Sector 7 slums, and this is where we meet Elmira, who finds Ifalna before she succumbs to her injuries and promises to take Aerith in and raise her as her own. And so Aerith went to live with Elmira and continued to be raised by Elmira pretty much for the rest of her life. Shinra continued to harass Aerith, but without any willingness to comply from her, they were limited in what they could do, and so Aerith remained with Elmira. As she grew older, her capabilities grew, and she could hear more, and not just hear more, but interpret more of the cries of the planet. She did everything that she could to hide the fact that she was Cetran, but it was something that she couldn't bury, and she had to learn to live with. Aerith spent a lot of time cultivating flowers in the abandoned church in Sector 5 slums, and she met a lot of different characters over the years here, but one of the most important was Zack Fair. Zack fell through the roof of the church and landed on the flower patch after an incident at the Sector 5 reactor involving Angeal. Aerith helps him regain his composure, and Zack tries to get Aerith to agree to go on a date with him. She refuses at this point, but there was definitely something there. Over the next few years, Zack and Aerith kept in touch, seeing each other whenever Zack's soldier duties permitted. Aerith even started selling flowers thanks to Zack's advice, although admittedly it didn't go all too well at first. And then the day came when Zack was dispatched to Nibelheim. Now, over the next few years, Aerith continued to work at selling flowers, never hearing from Zack again, although she did continue to write to him. At the end of the events of Crisis Core, Aerith seems to be able to perceive what's happened like she has done numerous times before. She continued to have interactions with Shinra, the Turks, and even Avalanche over time, but that's pretty much everything that leads up to the events of Final Fantasy VII. And then we come to that fateful day, when Cloudstrife takes copying Zack Fair to the extreme, and falls through the roof of the abandoned church in much the same way Zack had all those years ago. This leads us into the original continuity of Final Fantasy VII. Aerith tends to Cloud's injuries like she did with Zack all those years ago, and then once Reno of the Turks shows up, she asks Cloud to be her bodyguard in exchange for one date. Cloud agrees and leads Aerith to safety after easily dispatching the Shinra troops, and then he proceeds to take Aerith home. This is where he meets Elmira, and she kind of asks him to leave in the dead of night without Aerith and make his way back to Sector 7. Cloud agrees with this, not really wanting to drag Aerith into anything. Aerith, however, was completely wise to this, and she ends up cutting him off while he's on his way back to Sector 7. At this point, the two have the first real proper bonding scene that they have in Final Fantasy VII, which is at the park outside the Sector 7 slums. She tells Cloud that he reminds her of Zack in some ways, and Cloud tells Aerith about his background in Soldier. During this conversation, the pair see Tifa heading towards Sector 6, as she's on the way to get information from Don Corneo about Shinra's plans for Sector 7. Don't forget to check out the previous episode where I do cover Don Corneo's story in full. Cloud and Aerith decide to follow Tifa, and they end up joining up with her, unveiling Shinra's plans, and then heading back to the Sector 7 slums in order to try and put a stop to Shinra's plan, which is to crush Sector 7. Now, during the mission, Tifa asks Aerith to go and rescue Marlene and make sure that she's safe, and it's at this moment where Shinra are able to recapture Aerith. Due to the fact that she's in possession of Marlene, she agrees to go with the Shinra in order for Marlene's safety. Now back in Shinra's custody, Aerith is at the whim of Professor Hojo again, who has plans to breed Aerith with a species with a longer life cycle. This is to facilitate long-term experimentation, and so Red 13 is chosen to be Aerith's mate. However, as per usual, Cloud and the gang swoop in to save the day, rescuing Aerith and defeating Hojo. They get captured again by the Turks, but they're quickly able to escape again after the events revolving around Sephiroth and President Shinra in the Shinra HQ, and after that the party finally escapes the Shinra and set off in pursuit of Sephiroth in order to get some answers about everything that's gone on so far, their respective histories, and they decide as a group to work together to stop his plans. The party head to Calm. Cloud tells his story to the group, and then from there they head out in pursuit of Sephiroth. And the next major thing that we get revolving around Aerith predominantly comes at the Gold Saucer. At the Gold Saucer we have the date between Cloud and Aerith, which serves to build that relationship massively, and Aerith indicates that she knows that there's something not quite right about Cloud at the moment, because she says she wants to meet the real him. So she knows that something's not quite right with him, and it is a strong moment for the two characters. Shortly after the Gold Saucer, we go to the town of Gongaga, and this leads to Aerith meeting Zack's parents, which is another quite disturbing moment for Aerith. Eventually, though, the party tracks Sephiroth down to the Temple of the Ancients, and using Aerith's knowledge and abilities, they find Sephiroth and learn of his plans to use the Black Materia to summon Meteor. The team attempts to obtain the Black Materia in order to stop Sephiroth from getting it, but this is all part of Sephiroth's plan, using Cloud and the team so that he can get the Black Materia. Cloud suffers one of his famed moments of madness, attacks Aerith, and gives Sephiroth the Black Materia. It's at this point that Aerith leaves the party, appearing in a vision to Cloud while he recuperates and telling him that she's gone to stop Sephiroth. Her position as the final Cetra means it's possible that only she can do it, and so she tried by praying for Holy at the Forgotten City. Holy is the ultimate white materia, the direct counter to the ultimate black materia, Meteor, and it turns out that this was a materia that Aerith's mother Ifalna had left her, and that she'd had for all these years and didn't, well, she says that she didn't realise or know what it did, but when the time came, she obviously knew what she needed to do. Cloud figures all of this out, and he arrives at the Forgotten City with the party in tow to help Aerith, but once he gets there, his mind breaks again and Sephiroth tries to use him to kill Aerith. Cloud regains his composure and stops himself at the last instant, but we all know that Sephiroth is more than willing to get his hands dirty. And it's in this moment where Sephiroth drops from above, finishing Aerith off in one blow, and seemingly stopping any resistance that she had in place. But it turns out that her efforts were not in vain, as she had succeeded in summoning Holy. Now, for the meantime, Sephiroth blocks the power of Holy, and Aerith returns to the planet, continuing to exist as a part of the livestream, and doing whatever she can to help the party as their journey continues. She meets a lot of the characters that we've met in Final Fantasy VII so far who've already passed away, including Zack Fair. Aerith's also instrumental in helping Tifa when she falls into the livestream, giving her the help that she needed in order to be able to save Cloud and restore his fractured psyche. And once the journey is complete and Cloud finally defeats Sephiroth, Aerith can release Holy and try to repel Meteor. The problem is this had taken a bit too long, and Meteor had come too close, so what Aerith had to do was redirect the livestream's power itself in order to assist Holy and save the day. After these events, Aerith continued to exist in the livestream, although she was locked in a near constant battle with Sephiroth. Sephiroth had escaped into the livestream after his fight with Cloud, and continued to spread his will in the form of Geostigma. Aerith once again rose to the planet's defense though. She tried to defeat Geostigma herself, but she couldn't actually do it. She once again needed that assistance from Cloud. And so this is where the events of Advent Children kick into motion. Aerith working in the livestream to try and cure the world of Geostigma, while Cloud tries to fight against Sephiroth and his avatars, Loz, Yuzu and Kadaj, in the real world. And by the time we reach the end of Advent Children, Sephiroth has once again been defeated, the Geostigma has been cured, and the threat is seemingly gone, with Aerith finally able to rejoin the livestream in some sort of peaceful state. She doesn't make an appearance in Dirge of Cerberus. Potentially her powers and abilities in the livestream have been exhausted entirely during the struggle with Sephiroth, or maybe there's something in between that we've not been privy to yet. Maybe we'll get some explanation of that in Remake. But this is as far as Aerith's story goes, as far as the original continuity of Final Fantasy VII. Now in the Remake, the story pretty much follows all of the same plot beats. The change, while there are some changes to the narrative, the change isn't really in the narrative, it's in Aerith. Like I say, the events play out almost identically to the original continuity, but we do see an Aerith that seems to have a knowledge of what is coming and what's already transpired in the original Final Fantasy VII. And it's in Chapter 18 that we see this knowledge fully manifest itself and come to the forefront. As the party are making their final push to escape Midgar, they reach the end of the expressway and find Sephiroth waiting for them. Now, I have my theories about Sephiroth, as do many other people. I've done a fair bit already on it, and there are videos on the channel that cover Sephiroth already, but there is also going to be a video in this format where I try and deep dive into his story a lot more, so keep an eye out for that one coming. But just for now, just know that I believe that this Sephiroth is Advent Children Sephiroth, and he's come back in time or gone to a different reality in some way, shape or form. But yeah, Advent Children Sephiroth. So we're at the end of the expressway, and Aerith hesitates. She's not sure what there is to do. Throughout the game, as I've said, she's shown that she's got a seemingly extensive knowledge of the original continuity, and seems resolved that the outcome of the original continuity was a bad outcome, and that in order to get a good outcome or a better outcome, they have to defy destiny. And throughout the story of Remake, the planet had stepped in the way of this, in the form of the Whispers, trying to protect the timeline and maintain the future. Now, it makes sense, regardless of what happens to humanity, the planet survives in that original timeline, and if we go back and you see the scene with Red 13 at the end, the planet seems to be flourishing at this point. Midgar's been reclaimed by nature, everything's looking vibrant and green again rather than grey and wastelandish. So, as far as the planet's concerned, yeah, this is a win. But due to the knowledge that Aerith has, or thinks she has, she resolves to defy the planet, defy fate, and the group enter the portal that's been created by Sephiroth in order to do battle. They defeat the Arbiters of Fate and the giant Harbinger of Fate, which rebels directly against the planet and shatters the future laid out before them in the favour of creating a new future, a new destiny. It also seems to have further reaching ramifications, but again, we'll come to that in another video. But Aerith at this point seems certain that this is the right thing to do. The party then go on to defeat Sephiroth, but it's clear that the threat from him is far from over. And the game closes with the party stood outside Midgar as the rain begins to pour down, and Aerith looks up into the sky and laments that she misses the steel sky of Midgar. I think this is an indication that she's got some reservations now about the choices that she's made thus far, and the unknown journey that now lies before the party. Was she right to defy destiny in the way that she has? And that is the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and that is the end of everything that we've got so far revolving around Aerith Gainsborough. I've not gone into full minutiae of every single line of dialogue that she says or anything like that. I've just tried to hit the most important bits and the bits that are going to be relevant, or I believe are going to be relevant. If you think there is anything that I've missed that's important, please do drop it in the comments below. I do read comments, I don't get that many, so your comment will definitely get read. But yeah, if I have missed anything and you think it's vitally important, please do drop it in there. But we now have a few questions to answer. Things that really stood out for me once I'd finished Final Fantasy VII Remake and kind of thought over the compilation, and especially thinking over Aerith's involvement. The first of these is, how much information does Aerith have? Like, is she seeing the full story? Or is she getting snapshots like we see throughout the game? Because when we see these images throughout the game, we only know what's happening because we've played the original game. We've got context. I'm sure that there's people who didn't play the original game who saw those scenes, who have no context, who have no idea what those scenes mean, those little snapshots. So is Aerith only seeing that, or is she seeing more and we're only seeing that? That's one question that I think definitely needs to be answered. And personally, I don't think she is seeing the full picture. I think she is seeing something very similar to these little snapshots that we're seeing. The difference being, I think because she's feeling them directly from the planet, or it seems like she's feeling them directly from the planet, she'll potentially have more context than the others will have. So we and the other party members, they're only seeing the snapshot of what Aerith is seeing. Aerith's seeing the snapshot, but she's also getting some kind of like emotional context and feeling and knowledge from the live stream and the planet itself as well. So I think that could be why, but I don't think she's seeing the full picture. It comes across that she isn't. If she was seeing the full picture, she'd be certain in her actions, or she wouldn't have taken them because she'd have had all of the information available. So yeah, I'm thinking that she's seeing maybe slightly more than we see. That's my personal take, that she's seeing slightly more than we see, and she's got a little bit of context to work with. And this leads into the second question, which is another important question to answer for me. How is she getting this knowledge? The obvious answer is live stream. And yeah, that is a fairly possible, if not probable, answer. But the planet doesn't want Aerith to change the future. So it doesn't make sense for the planet to allow her to just passively absorb information relating to the future from the live stream. And even ignoring that, how is this information in the live stream at this point in the first place? There's two options. The first is that the live stream exists in a constant state of temporal flux almost. Yes, we are going all Star Trek-y on this one. But if it does exist in that sort of state where it's kind of temporally phased, events that happen in the future and events that happen in the past would be experienced the same as events that happen in the present in the live stream. That's my understanding of it, at least. I am not a physicist. Let's just throw that out there right now, and I think that's quite clear to anyone listening. But that is a possibility, but it just doesn't make sense. For me, it feels like a massive reach that if I'm in the live stream now, I can have information directly about something that's happened in the future. It doesn't work. That doesn't work for me. The other option is Sephiroth. If Sephiroth has come back from the Advent Children original continuity timeline, like I believe, then it's possible that when he's entered the ecosphere of Gaia in the present, in Remake, when he's entered into that, he's contaminated the live stream. Because when he enters the live stream, he is himself an essence. He isn't a physical manifestation swimming around in the live stream. He is a part of the live stream. Granted, he can keep and maintain his individuality, but he's still in that live stream. So the knowledge of what happens in the future could easily seep out of Sephiroth and contaminate the live stream. Now, whether or not that's accidental or intentional is unknown. It could just be a byproduct of him entering the live stream, and it could end up to work against him in the future. Or it could be that he's intentionally put these little tidbits, these snapshots, into the live stream, these memories, so that Aerith picks up on them and acts accordingly to what she's seeing. It could be a massively big brain move by Sephiroth. He could have planned this out, planted these memories and these visions into the live stream and just let Aerith do what she does with them. And let's be fair, it wouldn't be difficult for Aerith to perceive or notice something like this in the live stream. She's already proven over and over and over again that she's got a strong connection to the live stream and a strong connection to events, big events that happen. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'd hazard even someone like Bugenhagen will be aware of something like this going on. He might not be able to see the snapshots that Aerith's seeing, but he can hear the cries of the planet. He will know that something isn't right. So if he can perceive it, Aerith definitely can. And I definitely think that the live stream is the most likely route for Aerith getting her information. And personally, I feel like it is intentional and something that's been done by Sephiroth. But that's something that I'll go over at a later date when I do the Sephiroth episode of this series. So while Aerith may have done what she thought she needed to, she does have a fair bit of doubt about it. And she may have even realised that she's been duped by Sephiroth, given the way that he acts during the fight. Like, even when he's close to defeat, there's no panic, there's no nervousness, there's a wry smile on his face. Everything seems to be going perfectly to plan for Sephiroth. And then there are a few other questions. I mean, there are obviously the big ones like, will the party be able to beat Sephiroth and save the day again? And, who knows? It does sort of sit outside the scope of this video, but the next question could relate to that and help answer that. And this next question is, will Aerith still die? Now, this is a tough one. I've kind of got to separate myself from the original continuity, because I personally feel like for the story's sake, she should die. She needs to die. But that's me still viewing this as a remake of the original game, which it isn't. It's a new story. So I need to drop that preconception entirely. I will come back to it a little bit later on, but for the minute, let's drop that. It needs to be more about narrative necessity rather than narrative themes, and what's already happened. As far as themes go, in the original continuity, Aerith's death played into the whole themes revolving around life, death, loss, and dealing with that loss, and these were the core themes of the original game, and it was essential for a lot of plot points as well, Aerith's death. It gave a lot of characters strong motivations and galvanised them in the fight against Sephiroth, so it does play a vital part in that original story. But ignore all of that, and is it necessary for Aerith to die in order for the day to be won? She seemed able to summon Holy while she was alive. Now, we can never really know whether or not Holy would have been able to activate with Aerith alive rather than within the live stream, but she seems confident enough to try and use it, so there must have been a pretty solid chance that it was going to work without her dying. But there is also a very slim chance that, just like she does in Remake, she'd seen what was coming in the original game and just kind of accepted it. We don't really get too much of an indication of that, although we do have little moments where Kate says, yes, I will start saying it properly eventually, just not yet, predicts that what they want will be theirs, but they'll lose something dear. And so, do you know what I mean? There are little bits of foreshadowing throughout the game that something bad is going to happen. Well, throughout this one, that something bad is going to happen. So it is possible that Aerith did know, but I don't think so. But even after Sephiroth was defeated in the original game, it still took Aerith giving everything that she had, as well as using the livestream itself to boost Holy's power, just to stop Meteor. Now, a lot of this may be due to it being quite late in the day when Cloud finally does get Sephiroth defeated, but another possibility is that the sheer power of Meteor combined with Jenova and Sephiroth just made it so that so much effort was always going to be needed. And then the question becomes, would Aerith be able to manipulate the livestream in the way that she did if she's not a part of it? And could this be part of Sephiroth's plan? Has he realised that by keeping Aerith alive, he makes his task infinitely easier? Has he shown her enough information to indicate that she dies and things go badly for humanity in the laid out future, and then just left her to react accordingly? It is possible, and I know I've not really answered the question yet of whether or not Aerith will die or not, and it is, again, like I say, it is a tough one. But there is one more tiny bit of evidence that indicates that in the original game, she may have been meant to survive slightly longer. If you use cheat codes on the original PS1 version of Final Fantasy VII, I'm not sure if it works on newer versions, I've not tried, Aerith can be revived purely in the capacity of a playable character. You can add Sephiroth to your party as well, it doesn't appear in any dialogue, and the same sort of thing happens with Aerith after the point where she dies. She doesn't appear in any cutscenes or any dialogue, but she can be a playable character that you have in your party. Now, I did say that she doesn't appear in any cutscenes or dialogue, but there are a few exceptions. There are a lot of places where it's just generic things that she can say, at locations that she could easily have visited before she died. So, if you do revive her, it seems like these chunks of dialogue still show up. Places like Fort Condor, the Battle Arena, Rocket Town, places like that. But there is one that stands out, as it's in a location where Aerith never visits with the party, and that's in the snowfields just after the snowboarding minigame. Once the party land in the area, Aerith gets up, dusts herself off, and as she does so, she says, "I'm sick of this," in reference to the cold and the snow. Now, she also says about checking the map as well, and the game carries on as usual with you heading to Gaia's Cliff and the North Crater, but the lines about checking the map could easily, any character can say then. It's this other line where she says, "I'm sick of this." This indicates to me that even when they were coding and building the game, Aerith was seemingly going to survive a little bit further than she did. I'd probably say probably as far as the North Crater at most. We don't get any further dialogue scenes that pop up after this, other than in those other areas that I've mentioned. Now, if we take all of this into account, one of my beliefs is that she will still die, but it's going to be at a later stage in the story. Now, I'm not sure how she's going to end up surviving. Maybe she just doesn't go to the Forgotten City alone like she did in the original, and that way Sephiroth doesn't get his chance until slightly later in the story. I'm not too sure. I do have another theory where Advent Children Sephiroth and the Sephiroth that's native to this remake timeline and continuity, there's a bit of a clash there, and that could potentially end up leading to Aerith surviving. Because you've got to think, that original continuity, well, the Sephiroth that's in the remake continuity, he's just going through the motions as Sephiroth originally does. So he will try to kill Aerith, unless he gets stopped. But I do think she will eventually die. I know it's the most spoiled moment in gaming. I just got a feeling that they're going to do a bit of a bait and switch with us kind of thing, where they're going to let us think that she's going to live, and then bam, they'll hit us with it later on in the game. They'll get the same impact out of it that they would have done previously with the newer fans of the game, and it'll kind of freshen the whole scene up for us veterans of Final Fantasy VII who've seen Aerith die probably dozens, if not hundreds of times. But then the question becomes, who will finish Aerith off? Will it be this timeline Sephiroth? Will it be the original timeline Sephiroth? Is it going to be Cloud being mind-controlled? Is it going to be the last gasp attack of the planet using the Whispers to protect the timeline? Or is it going to be something else? All there is left to do now is wait and see. But what about you? What do you think about some of the questions in this video? Where do you think Aerith's getting this information from? And is this information accurate? And more importantly, is Aerith still going to die? And if so, when? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, please. Don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe for future content. But more importantly than anything, have a great day.